Blutbad.
Hello and welcome to my very first YouTube video. Today I will be showing you how I created this toy photograph which I have entitled Reclamation. I love seeing Boba reclaim his armor in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, but the show is cut in such a way that we don't get to see the actual moment where he is reunited with it. We know Boba is pretty sentimental about his armor since it formerly belonged to his father, so I just wanted to get a glimpse of this one short moment of triumph and reconnection with his past. So I'm just going to start by setting the scene here. I use these acrylic cylinders and these weights to prop up my scenery. Got a couple things here. One is a wall I've made out of these clear cat food dividers. I just spray paint them gray and glued them to a piece of cardboard. Makes a pretty nice ship interior. Next I just have this cardboard cutout that I made of a doorway that I'm going to use to shine light through, just to sort of direct the light afterwards. I've also got this egg carton, which I've also spray painted gray. Makes a nice little table here. Next I have a series of gels that I use to make the lights the color I want them to be. I'm using a diffused white and a blue gel on the sides to kind of recreate the interior lighting of the Razor Crest, and then I'm using this daylight gel in the front to recreate some sunlight coming in through the front door here. Next I've just got a few accessories. I've got the Camtono from the Client Black Series and the Jetpack from the Cobb Vanth Black Series. I've got Boba, who I've used a series of magnets to weigh down his hood, because these fabrics never stay in place. I'm using also the helmet from the Cobb Vanth Black Series. So this is the setup. Now it's time to start the editing process. I wanted a really soft focused background on this, a really shallow depth of field, so I used the camera settings at a 200mm focal length, and the f-stop was set at 9.0. So that made the background nice and soft. The only thing is that it also made it so Boba's face and the helmet are not both in focus at once, which I want them to be. So instead of changing the settings on the camera, what I was actually going to do here is combine two separate photos, one where his face is in focus and one where the helmet is in focus. So to do that, I opened both images in Photoshop. I stacked them in one file. I'm just going to rename the layers here real quick so I don't forget which one's which. Face focus and helmet focus. What I'm going to do from here is auto-align the layers. So this is a really handy tool. You don't have to do it by hand. You can just click this automatic thing and it makes the layers perfectly in line with each other. From there, I'm going to put a layer mask on the face focus layer and then brush a hole through this mask with the brush tool, essentially eliminating the out of focus helmet so you can see the focused helmet underneath. Now they're nice in focus together. I'm going to combine these two layers. I'm going to do what's called a duplicate merge. The short key is Control-Alt-Shift-E, and that just merges every visible layer you have. I like to do some touch-ups on the merge layer. Use the healing brush tool here to just eliminate some of these spots. That's actually supposed to be there. I'm going to leave that one. Maybe just mess with the bottom of the helmet here, make it look less like a toy. Not really happy with that. I'll come back to that part. One of the most important parts of the touch-up layer is removing the joints from the toys to make it look less toyish. I have a couple ways of doing this. I'm going to first start off with the content-aware fill tool. That's not really looking the way I want it to. So we're going to try a different option here. I'm going to use the healing brush tool instead. Maybe that'll blend it a little more nicely. That looks a bit better. Not perfect, but slightly more natural. What I like to do after the touch-up layer is create a duplicate layer which I'm going to dodge and burn on, which is to say I'm going to lighten and darken some parts. I'm going to start with the dodge tool to lighten his eyeball a bit. Got it set to mid-tones at the moment, and that looks awful, so let's just change that to... Sorry, it was set on highlights. I've now set it to midtones, and that looks a lot nicer. And I also want to make the helmet visor a bit darker, so I'll use the burn tool. Switch that from midtones to shadows. And that should make the visor nice and dark. Perfect, just touch up the corner there. The next step is to crop, because the auto align makes it so that there's some empty space in the corner there, and I want to eliminate that. So I'm just going to crop all the edges just a touch. Just kind of eyeballing this here. Apply that. You know what, I'm not really crazy about that little bit in the top left corner now, how it kind of cuts off that piece of the background, so let's just Control Z to go back. And I'm just going to try cropping this again, a little bit less this time, maybe just to cover those empty pixels in the right side. Yeah, I think that looks nicer. So after the cropping, I add a few adjustment layers. The first one I do is a levels layer. Just gonna not do too much here. I just want to make the darks a little bit darker, the lights a little bit lighter, tweak the midtones a little bit. It's looking solid. Going to do a hue and saturation layer. Just bump up the saturation a tiny little bit, nothing too fancy, I don't want to make it look ridiculous. And then a color balance layer, because despite the fact that I was trying to recreate sunlight coming through the door, it's a little bit too yellow for me overall. So I'm just going to tweak this, make it a bit more blue. Yeah, I think that looks nicer. And then the very last thing I'm going to do is create a vignette. And the easiest way to do that is create a solid white layer, and then you go to Filter and Lens Correction, rasterize the layer or convert it to a smart object, whatever you feel like. And then we're going to go to Custom and just crank this vignette up a bit. We're making a dark circle around the edges to bring the eye towards the center of the image. So we're going to change that to Multiply. And you can see there, just kind of focuses towards the middle a bit. And that's it. That's the whole process. Just going through these again, we've got the base file, the merge, the touch-ups, the dodging and burning, the levels, hue and saturation, color balance, and the vignette. There we go, final image. Thanks for watching.